On January 10th, 2013, in the quiet town of Valdosta, Georgia, a 17-year-old boy named Kendrick Johnson walked into Lundy's high school like it was any other day. He was just another student, athletic, focused, with dreams bigger than his small town could hold. But that day, Kendrick never came home. His mother, Jackie Johnson, started to worry. She called his phone, texted him, waited by the door, but the hours slipped by with no response. The sun set and the house stayed silent. Something was wrong. Deep down, she could feel it. The next morning, a group of students wandered into the school's old gym. They weren't looking for anything serious, just fooling around, laughing, killing time before class. But then, one of them screamed. Rolled up inside one of the large, upright gym mats, head down and feet barely visible, was the lifeless body of Kendrick Johnson. He was found stuck inside a vertical wrestling mat, arms pinned, body crumpled, socks still on his feet, dead. The authorities moved quickly. Their conclusion? It was a tragic accident. They said Kendrick had dropped one of his shoes inside the center of the rolled mat. Instead of asking for help, they claimed he tried to climb in and retrieve it himself. He slipped, they said, and suffocated. That was their story. Case closed. But not for Jackie and Kenneth Johnson. They knew their son. Kendrick wasn't reckless. He wouldn't risk his life over a shoe. Something about the story didn't add up. And as they began asking questions, everything began to unravel. The first thing they noticed? Kendrick's face. It was bruised, swollen, marked with what looked like cuts, signs of struggle. Yet no one mentioned this in the official report. Then came the surveillance footage. The school had multiple cameras in and around the gym. Kendrick was seen entering, but after a certain point, his movements vanished. Hours of footage gone, missing, deleted. The Johnsons demanded answers. They received none. And then the most horrifying discovery of all. Unsatisfied with the initial autopsy, the family ordered a second, independent one. What they found shocked even the medical examiner. Kendrick's internal organs were missing: heart, lungs, liver, even his brain, all gone. And in their place, newspapers. Someone had filled Kendrick's body with crumpled newsprint. The funeral home called it standard procedure. But to Jackie and Kenneth, it was unforgivable. It felt like a message, like someone was trying to erase their son, piece by piece. Still, they pushed, they protested. They begged federal investigators to step in. They believed, deep in their hearts, that Kendrick was murdered, and that someone was covering it up. They held signs, led marches, called out officials by name, but every door they knocked on was slammed shut. The sheriff insisted it was an accident. The school refused to comment. And the funeral home, they stood by their procedure. But Jackie wasn't buying it. Neither was Kenneth. They lost their son. And the system? It seemed like it didn't care. The fight for Kendrick wasn't over. Because if he didn't crawl into that mat himself, then someone else did. They buried Kendrick Johnson, but not the truth. From the moment Jackie and Kenneth Johnson laid eyes on their son's battered face in the funeral home, they knew they were not burying a boy who had suffocated trying to grab a shoe. No, this was something darker. Something intentional. Kendrick's face had been swollen beyond recognition. His skin discolored, lips split. There were bruises, deep, violent bruises. No one in law enforcement wanted to explain. And yet the official ruling remained. Accidental positional asphyxia. Kendrick supposedly fell headfirst into the mat and couldn't get out. But here's the problem. Kendrick was over 5 feet 10 inches tall. The opening of the mat was only 14 inches wide. His broad shoulders couldn't have fit without force. And yet there he was, wedged deep inside, head first, with his arms pinned to his sides. Who climbs into a mat like that? The Johnsons knew their son was too smart to do something so reckless. So they did what any grieving parents would do. They started digging, and the deeper they went, the more disturbing the picture became. They asked for the surveillance footage from the school. After all, the gym had cameras. They should have seen Kendrick walk in, should have seen him fall, should have seen someone, anyone, find him. But what they received was a joke. 4 different camera angles, all from around the gym. But Kendrick's movement? Choppy, incomplete. Entire sections were missing, hours gone, redacted, or supposedly glitching. In some clips, Kendrick walks down the hallway. In others, he simply vanishes. At one point, timestamps jump an entire hour. And in another camera, you can actually see Kendrick entering the gym, but you never see him leave. The school district said the cameras were motion activated, and Kendrick must have walked through blind spots. But even experts hired by the family called it manipulated, incomplete, possibly altered. Meanwhile, rumors began to swirl. Students whispered about a fight, about jealousy, about a confrontation involving two white brothers, both athletes, both well-connected, both said to have had a history with Kendrick. One of them, rumored to have gotten into a fight with Kendrick over a girl. The other, the son of an FBI agent. The Johnsons asked, could that explain the missing footage? The silence from the school? The reluctance of local authorities to dig deeper? Was this small southern town protecting its own? But it didn't stop there. The second autopsy, paid for by Kendrick's family, revealed something horrifying. Not only were his organs missing, but his body showed signs of non-accidental trauma. Blunt force injuries, a blow to the neck consistent with fatal hemorrhaging. This wasn't an accident. It was homicide. And yet, no charges, no arrests, no accountability. The funeral home claimed they had received Kendrick's body already without organs. That's just what happens during autopsies, they said. But the Georgia Bureau of Investigation insisted they had returned the organs. So who was lying? Somewhere between the state lab and the funeral home, Kendrick's internal body, his very evidence, had been removed, replaced with crumpled newspapers, as if someone wanted to erase the truth from the inside out. The Johnsons cried out for help. They begged federal agents to intervene. They wanted justice, not just for themselves, but for every black child in America who'd be hurt, killed, and forgotten. The FBI finally opened a preliminary investigation. For a moment, it looked like the tide was turning. But then, silence. The local U.S. attorney declined to file charges. The Justice Department issued a report saying there wasn't enough evidence of foul play. The case was closed again, and once more, Kendrick was buried, this time under a mountain of doubt. But Jackie and Kenneth didn't stop. They filed lawsuits, led marches, drove across the country with posters and petitions. They refused to let Kendrick become just another unsolved story. And then, something happened. In 2021, nearly 8 years after Kendrick's death, the case was reopened. A new sheriff, Ashley Polk, announced he would review the entire investigation from scratch. Hundreds of documents, dozens of interviews, new eyes, new hope. But then came the twist. After months of review, Sheriff Polk made his announcement. He said there was no evidence of foul play. Again, he claimed Kendrick's death was a weird accident and that all the conspiracy theories were fueled by grief, not facts. Jackie Johnson wept, but not from surprise, from exhaustion, from pain, from the unbearable weight of a system that seemed built to protect some and bury others. But even then, the Johnsons didn't stop, because there was still one piece of the puzzle left unturned, a lead too dangerous to ignore. A whistleblower had come forward, an anonymous tip, someone who claimed they had seen what happened, someone who claimed that Kendrick Johnson didn't fall into that mat. He was placed in it by someone he trusted. And there's more. This source said there's a tape, a real one, the one they didn't want anyone to see, a tape that could shatter everything. But the question is, where is it, and why hasn't it been released? The anonymous tip came in quietly, a voice, shaken, nervous, masked by fear. They didn't give their name, only a warning, a truth that had stayed buried for too long. There's a video, they said, a real one, not the school's footage, the one they didn't release. Jackie Johnson froze. For years, she had fought to find out what really happened to her son, Kendrick. She had studied every blurry frame of that so-called surveillance footage, watched her boy walk into that school, and then disappear. But now, someone was saying there was more, something that had been hidden, a tape, a real-time recording. Someone out there might have seen what happened that day in the old gym. Someone might know who put Kendrick Johnson into that mat. And now, for the first time, the story was no longer about what people thought happened. It was about what someone knew. The whistleblower, let's call him Tom, said he had been a student at Lowndes High School back in 2013. Said he knew people who were there that day, and what he shared changed everything. He claimed Kendrick had gotten into an argument, not with a stranger, but with someone he knew, someone he had history with. Tom said it was over a girl. Emotions ran high, voices were raised, and then it turned violent. Kendrick, cornered, pushed, a fall, a sound, then silence. Tom said there were people in that gym. More than just Kendrick. He didn't name names at first, but he mentioned the brothers. The same ones the Johnson family had suspected for years. The same ones with a father in the FBI, and when Tom was asked why he didn't come forward sooner, his voice trembled. "Because people disappear," he whispered, "and because I was told not to." That was the beginning. From there, things escalated fast. The Johnson family's attorney demanded the FBI open an investigation into the new allegations, and for the first time in years, the case caught fire in the public again. Twitter, Instagram, national news. #Justice for Kendrick was trending. Then, Sheriff Ashley Pork made a surprising move. He released 17 boxes of evidence from the case, thousands of pages, dozens of videos, photos, interviews. He claimed there was nothing to hide, that the boxes held everything. But when independent investigators started digging through them, they noticed something strange. The tipster's statement, the one about the fight, the brothers, and the tape, was buried near the bottom and redacted heavily. Most of it blacked out, names gone, details missing, and the video still missing. So now the world was asking the same question. If this tape exists, why hasn't it surfaced? And who's keeping it hidden? Let's rewind a moment. Back when the original surveillance footage was released, Kendrick's movements inside the school stopped cold around 1:09 p.m. That's when he was last seen entering the old gym. From that moment on, hours went missing. Multiple cameras stopped recording, timestamps skipped, files corrupted. Even the school's IT director later admitted some footage was recorded on a loop, meaning if no one saved it in time, it would erase itself. But what if someone did save it? What if someone took that file and tucked it away for 10 years? That's what Tom hinted at. He said a staff member, a janitor, had once bragged about seeing something he wasn't supposed to, something about a scuffle, blood. A rush to clean it up before the school resource officer arrived, and then he was gone, transferred, retired, disappeared. No follow-up, no interview, nothing. Meanwhile, the Johnsons were growing more desperate. They had Kendrick's body exhumed 3 times. 3 separate autopsies, and each time new bruises appeared, new injuries documented. The most recent autopsy concluded Kendrick died from blunt force trauma, a blow so strong it crushed his carotid artery. That's not an accident, that's violence. Intentional, deadly. And yet, despite all this, the case remained stalled. No arrests, no charges, no answers. And then, out of nowhere, another twist. A second source stepped forward. This one wasn't anonymous. Her name was Taylor. She said she had overheard a conversation at a party years ago between one of the brothers and a group of friends. She said he had laughed about the incident in the gym, had said something like, "People think he fell in a mat. We just taught him a lesson." Taylor was scared to speak. She said when she first considered coming forward, someone left a threatening note in her locker at work. But now she was done being quiet. She gave her statement to the Johnsons' legal team. It was added to the growing mountain of evidence that all pointed to one chilling truth. Kendrick Johnson didn't fall. He was silenced. But still, without that tape, there's no smoking gun, and that's why Jackie Johnson continues to plead. Release the real footage, she says. Show the world what really happened to my son, because somewhere out there a file exists, in a USB drive, a backup server, a phone. Someone saw it. Someone still has it. And until that video is shown, the truth stays buried. But we're not done. Thursday, January 10th, 2013. Kendrick Johnson walked through the front doors of Lowndes High School just after 7:30 a.m. It was a normal Georgia morning. Overcast skies, a chill in the air. Students shuffled in with backpacks, headphones, and sleepy eyes. Some stopped to chat. Some rushed to beat the bell. And Kendrick, he was smiling. That's what his friends remembered most. That smile, that energy. Always moving, always joking, always kind. He was wearing black and white gym shorts over grey sweatpants, a white t-shirt, and his signature black sneakers. By third period, he had attended his regular classes, English, social studies, weight training. Several students recalled seeing him in the locker room around noon, grabbing his gym shoes. Nothing seemed unusual. Nothing. Yet, But that was the last time Kendrick was ever seen alive. At 1:09 p.m., he was captured on camera walking down the hallway toward the school's old gymnasium. The image is grainy, slightly blurred, but unmistakable. He walks with purpose. Not rushed, not scared. Just Kendrick. The cameras above the entrance to the old gym caught that final frame. And then everything goes black. The next thing anyone saw of Kendrick was his lifeless body, upside down inside a rolled gym mat the following morning. But here's what investigators never explained. Why did Kendrick go into the old gym at all? By January 2013, the new gym had become the main location for PE. The old gym was used for storage and spare equipment. Most students didn't even walk in there unless they had to. Kendrick wasn't scheduled for any activity there that day. So why did he go? Some said he stored extra gym shoes behind the rolled mats. Others questioned if he was meeting someone, a friend, a rival. Then there's the positioning of his body. Kendrick was found upside down in a vertical mat, arms pinned to his sides, his face swollen with blood pooling from the pressure of gravity. Authorities said he had dropped one of his shoes into the center of the mat, which was stored upright against the wall. They theorized Kendrick dove in to retrieve it, became stuck, and suffocated. But there's a problem with that story. Several problems. For one, Kendrick was over 6 feet tall. The mat's opening was just 14 inches wide. Experts say a boy his size wouldn't slide in easily, especially not with his arms pinned tightly to his sides. And more importantly, both shoes were found inside the mat, one near his feet, one below his head. If Kendrick had been reaching for a shoe, why would the second one be placed above his head? Then there was the condition of his body. The autopsy revealed bruises, deep ones, small cuts and abrasions on his knuckles, suggesting a struggle, and behind his right ear, swelling, consistent with blunt force trauma. Investigators dismissed it. They called it positional asphyxia. They said he got stuck, panicked, and died slowly. But Kendrick's family wasn't buying it, especially not when they noticed something even more disturbing: blood. Near the mat where Kendrick was found, a small trail of blood was spotted on the gym floor. It didn't match Kendrick's blood type. It belonged to someone else. Who? Authorities never said. And when the Johnsons asked why no blood testing was done on it, they were told the blood was too old and unrelated. Unrelated? To a teen who died just inches away? It was careless. That was suspicious. Then came the surveillance footage. According to the school, Kendrick was last seen on camera entering the gym at 1:09 p.m., but between 1:09 and the end of the school day, there was a 2-hour gap in the footage. The cameras in the gym? They either froze, glitched, or were tampered with. And when independent analysts reviewed the files, they found something chilling. The video files had been manually altered. Some clips were removed. Some timestamps were inconsistent. Some showed people entering rooms but never leaving. Time vanished. Evidence lost. The school said it was a malfunction. The Johnsons believed it was a cover-up. And then came the timeline breakdown. Kendrick was seen heading to the old gym at 1:09. At 3, the final bell rang. But no one reported seeing him leave. Not his teachers, not his friends, not even the school's hall monitors. He was just gone. But here's the part that shakes this entire case to its core. At 3:15 p.m., just after dismissal, a student reported hearing something from the old gym, a thud, then silence. She didn't think anything of it. Not until the next day when the body was found. That student, never formally interviewed by police. Her statement? Ignored. Instead, the case was closed, labeled a tragic accident. But what if it wasn't? What if that sound, the thud, was the moment Kendrick was killed? What if the missing footage holds the key to proving it? What if someone turned off the cameras and turned off Kendrick's life? And here's where it gets even darker. In the days following his death, school officials claimed they had no knowledge of foul play. But several students recalled seeing teachers whispering, nervous. One janitor was even seen disinfecting part of the gym floor the very afternoon Kendrick vanished. That janitor moved to another campus 2 weeks later. Coincidence or convenience? The Johnson family continued pushing. They filed lawsuits, held press conferences, marched in the streets with signs that read, "My child was murdered." Someone knows the truth. And then, years later, one investigator found something buried deep inside the police report. A name. A student who had been seen near the gym that afternoon. A student whose story didn't quite line up. That student was one of the brothers. And suddenly, the case wasn't just about a missing boy anymore. It was about motive, history, and a lie that may have taken 10 years to unravel. But here's the twist. As that investigator prepared to contact the student for questioning, he disappeared. Phone number changed, address vacated. Gone. Just like Kendrick. And as we approach what could be the biggest break in this case, one question remains. If Kendrick Johnson didn't climb into that mat, then who was in the gym that day? And what are they still hiding? The Johnson family had spent months chasing shadows, but now they had names. Two brothers, both students at Lowndes High School, both known to Kendrick, and both tied to a past altercation with him. According to classmates, Kendrick had once been involved in a school bus fight with one of the brothers. Rumors swirled that tensions lingered, that a grudge may have never died down. But these weren't just any students. Their father, an FBI agent. Suddenly everything made sense, and nothing made sense at all. The Johnsons, fueled by grief and suspicion, began to believe they were up against something far more powerful than just a school cover-up. They believed they were up against the federal government. And the cracks in the story? They kept spreading. After Kendrick's body was found, his family noticed something that changed everything. His organs were gone. Every organ, from his brain to his heart to his lungs. In their place, newspaper. Yes, newspaper. The funeral home claimed the body had arrived that way from the Georgia Bureau of Investigation. The GBI said they had returned the body with all organs intact. Someone was lying. The Johnsons demanded a second autopsy. This time, the results were damning. Blunt force trauma, a blow to the neck, consistent with a fatal injury, not an accident. The official cause of death changed from positional asphyxia to unexplained, non-accidental blunt force trauma. Now the questions intensified. Why were Kendrick's organs missing? Why wasn't the gym treated as a crime scene? Why was the footage missing? And why were the brothers never fully investigated? Johnsons filed a wrongful death lawsuit claiming Kendrick had been murdered and that school officials, law enforcement, and even FBI personnel were part of a conspiracy to cover it up. The brothers were named directly. In response, their father, then an FBI agent, filed a defamation suit. The case went cold. Then, in 2021, 8 years after Kendrick's death, it reopened. A new sheriff, a new team, a promise to review all the evidence with fresh eyes. 75 pieces of new information were submitted, 3 binders filled with records. But in 2022, the case was closed again. The conclusion? No charges to be filed. Yet to this day, the Johnson family insists this was no accident. And they're not alone. Millions across the country have questioned the facts, followed the inconsistencies, and demanded justice for a young black teenager whose body told a story the system refused to hear. And here's the part that stays with you. In his last photograph, taken by police, Kendrick lies inside that rolled-up mat, his face swollen, his eyes shut, his body stiff. But something in that image speaks louder than any autopsy. It's not the way he died, it's the silence that followed, the erasure, the refusal to ask hard questions. And the way his name was nearly buried with him. But Kendrick Johnson's story didn't stay buried, because his family wouldn't let it, because his community stood up, because strangers across the country saw themselves in that gym mat, and because truth, even when ignored, has a way of rising. So we end this series with what we know. A bright, athletic 17-year-old walked into school and never came home. He was found inside a rolled-up mat. He had bruises, missing organs, and a timeline that made no sense. Officials called it a freak accident. But the people, they called it what it looked like. A murder. And maybe we'll never know who did it. Maybe justice won't come in a courtroom. But the memory of Kendrick Johnson now lives in protests, in documentaries, in podcasts, and in the voices of every mother, father, and student who knows this could have been them. We say his name so we don't forget. We tell his story so we don't repeat it. And we remember that justice delayed is justice denied. This is the end of the Kendrick Johnson story. For now, because truth doesn't die. It waits and it watches, and One day,